Welcome to Max Premieres. This year, Netflix came in strong. Thrillers that won't let you go, long-awaited comebacks, a Latin American saga ready to close with everything its story deserves, and pirates who already proved that the impossible can actually be done right. Number 7. The Gentleman, Season 2. Eddie Horniman inherited an English dukedom and, without asking for it, also inherited a marijuana growing operation hidden beneath his land. What followed in Season 1 was a black comedy crime show with the unmistakable signature of Guy Ritchie. Razor-sharp dialogue, layered characters, stylized violence, and an energy that doesn't let up from the first episode. Theo James led a series that became one of Netflix's biggest hits in 2024, with a massive audience and critics who recognize that Ritchie in series format works just as well as he does in cinema. Season 2 arrives with an expanded universe, new enemies, and higher stakes. Eddie is no longer the confused heir who didn't know what he'd gotten himself into. He now knows exactly where he stands, and that makes him both more dangerous and more interesting. Guy Ritchie stays on board as producer, ensuring the tone doesn't get diluted or turn conventional. The cast expands, with additions not yet fully revealed, but the foundation is already built on a first season that left audiences wanting exactly this: more world, more chaos, and more of that dark humor that makes everything feel like a very elegant and very dangerous game. Number 6. The Lincoln Lawyer, Season 4. Mickey Haller practices law from the backseat of a Lincoln Town car, moving through Los Angeles from case to case, with a mix of street instinct, legal skill, and an ethics code that isn't always aligned with the rulebook. The series is based on Michael Connelly's novels, the same author behind Bosch, and since its premiere in 2022, it has built one of Netflix's most loyal audiences in the legal thriller genre. Manuel Garcia Rulfo is Mickey Haller, and his natural charisma turns every courtroom into something closer to a chess match than a legal proceeding. Season 4 adapts The Law of Innocence, the 6th book in the saga, and presents the most uncomfortable situation the character has faced yet. Mickey is the defendant. A former client turned up dead, and everything points to him, so this time he has to defend his own freedom while simultaneously managing other cases. Neve Campbell returns, the pacing holds firm, and the formula keeps working exactly as it should. The season was renewed for a 5th installment before it even premiered, which says everything about Netflix's confidence in this project. For fans of smart legal thrillers, it remains the most consistent show the platform has in that genre right now. Number 5. The Night Agent, Season 3. Peter Sutherland was an FBI agent assigned to answer a phone in the basement of the White House, a job so monotonous it felt like punishment. That call came in, and what followed turned him into the most unlikely agent in recent spy fiction. Season 1 accumulated 98 million views in its first 91 days, making it the 10th most watched English-language series in Netflix history, with 4 consecutive weeks at number 1 globally. A number like that doesn't happen by accident. Season 3 takes Peter across 5 countries on 3 continents, with Genesis Rodriguez joining as an investigative journalist and a conspiracy that this time crosses borders in the most literal sense. It opened with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes at its critical debut. Viewership has dropped season over season from 47 million in the first to 18 million in this third, but Netflix bet on a 4th season anyway. The reason is simple. The show has a clear identity, a magnetic lead, and a straight action formula that works in any market. For fans of espionage without philosophical pretensions, it continues to deliver exactly what it promises every single season. Number 4. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Season 2. Aang is the Avatar, the only being capable of mastering all 4 elements: water, earth, fire, and air. On his shoulders rests the responsibility of maintaining balance between nations in a world where war has shattered nearly everything. The original Nickelodeon animated series is considered one of the greatest animated productions in history, with a fan base that has been growing for 2 decades. Bringing it to live action was one of those projects the fandom watched with a mix of hope and dread. Netflix's first season managed to do something difficult: convince enough people that it could be done with both respect and ambition. Season 2 dives into the Earth arc, the one many fans of the original consider the most beloved, and brings with it Toph Beifong, one of the most anticipated characters of the entire adaptation. Gordon Cormier returns as Aang with a confidence that shows from the earliest trailers, and the cast expands with names the fandom has been analyzing for months. Netflix has also confirmed a third and final season, meaning the plan is clear and the story will arrive complete. For those who grew up with Aang, Katara, and Sokka, this season is the moment the adaptation has the chance to finally earn what the first left unfinished. Number 3. One Piece, Season 2. Monkey D. Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, not for power or wealth, but because being king of the pirates means being the freest man in the world. With a rubber body, his straw hat, and a crew he assembled in the most chaotic way possible, Luffy sets sail in search of the One Piece, the legendary treasure left behind by the last great pirate king. Season 1 adapted the early arcs of Eiichiro Oda's manga, one of the best-selling comics in history with over 600 million copies in circulation, and finished with an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes and the #1 spot in 46 countries. Season 2 takes the Straw Hats to the Grand Line, the most dangerous and extraordinary stretch of ocean in the world. The first 2 episodes were screened in 200 movie theaters across the United States, Canada, and Japan before the streaming premiere, a gesture Netflix reserves for its biggest bets. Tony Chopper, Princess Vivi, and villain Sir Crocodile join the story, with Joe Manganiello playing Crocodile. The result already sits at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 3 is already in production in Cape Town. The impossible was already proven possible. Now it's only a matter of seeing how far it goes. Number 2. Lupin, Part 4. Assane Diop grew up watching his father, an honest Senegalese immigrant, be falsely accused of stealing a diamond necklace and end up dying in prison for a crime he never committed. Years later, Assane became France's most elegant thief, inspired by the adventures of the legendary Arsène Lupin, master of disguise and deception. His goal was always one: take revenge on the Pellegrini family, the powerful people who destroyed his father. 3 parts, dozens of impossible heists, and a relentless police pursuit later, Assane achieved what no one expected and paid the highest price for it. Part 3 ended with him turning himself into the police, because he understood that as long as he remained free, everyone he loved was in danger. Now Part 4 arrives, the longest yet at 8 episodes, and prison holds a brutal surprise. Hubert Pellegrini, the man who destroyed his childhood, is locked in the same place. Omar Sy returns to the role that launched him to a global audience, in a series with a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes that remains the 3rd most watched non-English production in Netflix history. Assane still has his Arsène Lupin books and the same brilliant mind as always. The question isn't whether he'll get out, the question is how spectacular the way he does it will be. Number 1. 100 Years of Solitude, Part 2, Final. Macondo is not a place on any map. It's an idea, a curse, a dream that Jose Arcadio Buendia founded in the middle of the jungle, certain he was building something eternal, not knowing that the eternal and the doomed are sometimes the same thing. Gabriel Garcia Marquez's novel is the most translated and widely read Latin American literary work in the world, with over 50 million copies sold in dozens of languages, and for decades it was considered completely unadaptable. Netflix attempted it anyway, filmed entirely in Colombia, with a Latin American cast, with Garcia Marquez's own sons as executive producers, and with a commitment to honoring every page. The result was a first part that entered the global top 10 for non-English productions and shook the entire region. This second and final part closes the Buendia cycle, the arrival of the Banana Company, the massacre that no one wanted to remember, the irreversible decline of Macondo, and the fulfillment of the prophecy that Ursula Iguaran carried her entire life. Laura Mora and Carlos Moreno direct with the same fidelity and visual rigor that defined the first installment. August 2026 is the date, and what's coming isn't simply the end of a series, it's the closing of the most important adaptation that Latin American cinema and television has ever attempted. 100 years waiting for this moment, it's almost here. This year, Prime Video came with everything. Thrillers that won't let you sleep, comedies that break the mold, a legendary detective who returns younger than ever, and a Latin American saga that's been waiting decades to be told right. Number 7. The Night Manager, Season 2. Jonathan Pine was the night manager of a luxury hotel in Cairo when he was pulled into the world of espionage to infiltrate an arms dealer's network. Season 1, released in 2016, became one of the most acclaimed spy series of its era, sophisticated, elegant, with Tom Hiddleston delivering the performance of his career and Olivia Colman as the MI6 strategist who handles him. It was a miniseries that didn't ask for a sequel. And yet, 10 years later, here's Season 2. Pine is now living under a false identity in London when a chance encounter drags him back into the field. This time, the target is Teddy Dos Santos, a dangerous Colombian arms dealer played by Diego Calva. The mission takes him to Colombia, with Camila Morrone as the ambiguous collaborator who complicates everything. Hiddleston and Coleman are still extraordinary together, and the series maintains that high-end espionage elegance. The problem, as several critics pointed out, is that the prestige spy thriller is no longer the rarity it was in 2016, and the Latin American arms dealer setting feels more stereotyped than the original's villains. Still, one of the most polished series of the year. Number 6. Young Sherlock. Sherlock Holmes is 19 years old and a complete mess. He studies at Oxford, lacks any discipline, and has just become the prime suspect in a murder he didn't commit. His first case, the one that begins turning him into the detective the world knows, starts with his own freedom on the line. And to make everything worse, his new best friend's name is James Moriarty. Guy Ritchie, the director behind both Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films, directs the first 2 episodes and produces the entire series. The result is exactly what you'd expect from him. Frantic editing, stylized fights, sharp humor, and an energy that doesn't give you a second to breathe. Hero Phineas Tiffin works surprisingly well as the young, unpolished Sherlock, and the dynamic of Moriarty as his friend, before his enemy adds a layer of tension the audience feels from the very first minute. The series holds an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a second season is already being discussed. If you enjoy adaptations that do something genuinely different with familiar material, it's perfect for a weekend binge. Number 5. SCARPETTA. Kay Scarpetta is a forensic pathologist, and not just anyone. She sees what no one else can. Her career began in the late 90s as a chief medical examiner, building a case that defined her professionally. Decades later, she returns to her hometown, resumes her position, and finds herself facing a murder with eerie echoes of that original case. The question isn't just who killed the victim, but whether someone from her past is using the moment to destroy everything she built. Nicole Kidman has spent nearly 20 years pursuing this role, and it shows. The intensity she brings to Scarpetta is on another level, balancing the character's technical brilliance with the emotional weight of a woman who has sacrificed too much to get where she is. Jamie Lee Curtis as her difficult sister creates friction in every scene they share, and Ariana DeBose as the tech-gifted niece rounds out a trio of Academy Award winners that few series can boast. The series was ordered for 2 seasons from the start, which says a great deal about Prime Video's confidence in the project. If you loved Big Little Lies, Scarpetta carries that same energy of brilliant, deeply complicated women. Number 4. The Legend of Vox Machina, Season 4. Vox Machina is a group of adventurers who should be saving the world, but who spend most of their time drinking, fighting among themselves, and getting into trouble that clearly exceeds their abilities. The series is based on the Dungeons & Dragons campaign that Critical Role streamed live for years, accumulating millions of fans before becoming this animated production. Season 1 launched as one of the most funded projects in Kickstarter history, and Prime Video turned it into one of its most reliable adult animation hits. Season 4 arrives with 12 episodes, the longest run yet, which suggests these characters' stories aren't wrapping up anytime soon. The series blends adult humor, cartoonish violence, and genuinely emotional moments in a way that few animated shows manage to sustain across multiple seasons. If you're a fan of Dungeons & Dragons or simply enjoy fantasy adventures with a lot of personality and genre self-awareness, this is practically essential viewing. The exact premiere date has not yet been confirmed, but everything points to the second half of the year. Number 3. Invincible, Season 4. Mark Grayson was 17 when he discovered he was half human and half Viltrumite, a race of alien beings among the most powerful in the universe. His father, Omni-Man, was Earth's most respected superhero. What Mark didn't know was that his father had an agenda that would change everything. The betrayal that closed Season 1 remains one of the most shocking moments in adult animation in years. Seasons 2 and 3 dove deeper into the real cost of being a superhero: guilt, helplessness against threats that exceed any capability, and the impossibility of protecting everyone. Invincible doesn't let its characters escape unscathed, not physically and certainly not emotionally, and that is what separates it from almost every other superhero story available right now. Season 4 arrives with 8 episodes, and expectations are sky high after the turn Season 3 left behind. Steven Yeun remains perfect as the voice of Mark, and the animation quality has grown with every installment. This is the most important adult superhero series in streaming right now, and each new season proves it. Number 2. SPIDER-NOIR. New York, the 1930s. The city is rotten with corruption, and the only man who ever tried to clean it up wants nothing to do with it anymore. Peter Parker, old and exhausted, works as a private detective in a world where gangsters run everything and heroes retired a long time ago. But the city needs him one more time, and he can't ignore it no matter how hard he tries. Nicolas Cage returns to the role he first voiced in Spider-Man: Into the Spider-Verse, now in a live-action series produced by Sony Pictures Television for Prime Video. The concept is bold. Take one of comics' most beloved universes and drop it into classic noir territory, with gangster film aesthetics, dark humor, and a Peter Parker who has nothing left to prove to anyone. Lamorne Morris joins him in a key role, and director Harry Bradbeer, the same director behind Fleabag and Killing Eve, helms the first 2 episodes. If the trailers are any indication, this could be the most original superhero reinvention since Into the Spider-Verse hit theaters. Everything is still to be proven, but the ambition here is enormous. Number 1. The Boys. Season 5, Final. Homelander has the power of a god and the emotional stability of a bomb about to go off. Starlight knows what he is. Billy Butcher does too. And since Season 1, the question driving this series hasn't been how you stop a corrupt superhero, but what price you have to pay to even try. The Boys is the most brutal, most intelligent, and most disturbingly funny deconstruction of the superhero myth that popular entertainment has produced in decades. It's not just an action series, it's a satire of power, of media, of idol worship, and of the way money turns everything into a product, including the heroes themselves. Anthony Starr has never played Homelander. He inhabits him. Every season added layers to a character that should be impossible to make work. A monster that makes you laugh, then terrifies you, then makes you understand how he became what he is. Karl Urban as Billy Butcher carries the dramatic counterweight with a ferocity that few television actors can match. Season 5 closes the arc of every character it has spent years building, and creator Eric Kripke has confirmed no story is left unresolved. There will be blood, there will be chaos, and there will be real consequences. Series don't end like this very often, with this level of ambition sustained across 5 full seasons. The final season of The Boys isn't just Prime Video's biggest release of the year, it's one of the most important television events of this moment. HBO Max arrives in 2026, with one of the most ambitious years in its entire history. 2 series from the Game of Thrones universe airing at the same time, the most anticipated comeback in American television, and a comedy that just won the Emmy and still has more to say. Number 7. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. 75 years before House of the Dragon, Westeros is a quieter place, but not a safer one. Sir Duncan the Tall is a wandering knight with no lineage, no fortune, and no one to back him up, except a small squire who calls himself Egg and is hiding a secret that could change everything. Based on George R.R. Martin's novellas about Dunk and Egg, this series is deliberately different from the rest of the Game of Thrones universe, more intimate, more human, with a tone that blends road adventure with moments of genuine humor that House of the Dragon never allowed itself. Peter Clafley as Duncan and Dexter Soul Ansel as Egg build on screen a mentor and apprentice dynamic that from the very first episode is impossible not to want to keep following. The series was included in HBO's 2026 sizzle reel alongside Euphoria and House of the Dragon, a clear signal of the confidence the platform has in this project as the next major pillar of the Targaryen universe. It was already renewed for a second season before the first had finished airing. For Game of Thrones universe fans who wanted something different from the political drama and dragon wars, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is exactly the change of tone the universe needed. Number 6. Industry Season 4. Pierpoint & Co. is one of the most powerful investment banks in London, and the young people who manage to get in quickly discover that surviving there comes at a price that appears in no contract. Industry is the series about the financial world that Succession never wanted to be dirtier, more visceral, more interested in the bodies and minds involved than in the boardrooms. Myha'la, Kit Harington, Marisa Abela, and Ken Leung lead a 4th season that arrives after the 3rd turned the series into one of HBO's most acclaimed dramas, generating a massive audience increase and the best reviews in its history. The world the series built across 3 seasons with its impossible alliances, its calculated betrayals, and its characters who can never quite decide what kind of people they want to be, arrives at its 4th installment with more budget, more ambition, and more at stake. Created by Mickey Down and Conrad Kay, Industry is the series that best captures the anxiety of a generation that entered the workforce, believing merit was enough, and discovered the game has other rules. Season 4 kicked off on January 11th, and in its very first episodes already confirmed the series has absolutely no intention of slowing down. For those who haven't seen it yet, 3 complete seasons are waiting on HBO Max, and they will disappear an entire weekend without you noticing how the time passed. Number 5. Dune Prophecy Season 2. 10,000 years before Paul Atreides walked the sands of Arrakis, 2 sisters founded the order that would spend millennia shaping the destiny of humanity from the shadows. Dune Prophecy is the prequel that expands Frank Herbert's universe in the opposite direction from the films, not toward the individual hero, but toward the institutions that make him possible. Emily Watson and Olivia Williams lead as the Harkonnen sisters who built the Bene Gesserit from the ground up, in a first season that arrived carrying the enormous weight of the Dune universe's expectations and exceeded them with a political and philosophical story that works equally well for fans of the universe and for viewers arriving with no knowledge of the original material. Season 2 arrives in 2026 in what HBO has internally described as the Year of Dune, deliberately coordinated with the theatrical release of Dune Part 3 to create a sustained cultural moment around the franchise. Production expanded the episode count from 6 to 8 for this second installment, suggesting a more ambitious story and more space for the supporting characters the first season introduced. For those who watched Denis Villeneuve's films and were left hungry for more of the universe, this series is the perfect complement that no other platform has. Number 4. The Pit Season 2. Pittsburgh Trauma Medical Center. A 15-hour shift in real time, no cuts, no jumping to the next day, no clean resolutions at the end of each episode. The Pit is the medical drama American television has needed since ER went off the air, a series that treats emergency medicine with the same documentary seriousness a journalist would bring to a war zone, without the romanticism or sentimental subplots that turned Grey's Anatomy into a soap opera in Scrubs. Noah Weil won the Emmy for Best Dramatic Actor in the first season. The series won the Emmy for Best Drama, 2 awards in a debut season for a show nobody saw coming that does not happen by accident. Season 2 kicked off on January 8th, 2026 with the same format, 15 episodes, 15 hours of the 4th of July shift at the same hospital, with the same team facing a patient volume that never lets up. Catherine Lanassa and Patrick Ball return alongside Weil in a season that, according to HBO, outperformed the premiere numbers of the first, confirming that The Pit is no longer a surprise, but a full phenomenon. For those who haven't entered yet, the complete first season is on HBO Max and is one of the best dramas of the last 5 years. Number 3. Hacks Season 5 Final. Deborah Vance has spent her entire life reinventing herself. Las Vegas comedian, late-night television icon, enemy of her own impulses, and the most interesting person Ava Daniels has ever met, even though neither of them would admit it without a fight first. Hacks is the best comedy in the entire history of HBO Max, a series that across 4 seasons won the Emmy for Best Comedy, elevated Jean Smart to the status of living television legend, and turned Hannah Einbinder into one of the most distinctive voices of her generation on screen. Every season was better than the one before it. Every season found a new way to make the relationship between Deborah and Ava say something different about ambition, loyalty, and the price of building something of your own in an industry that consumes people whole. The fifth and final season arrives in 2026 to close a story that always knew exactly what it wanted to say. Creators Lucia Aniello, Paul W. Downs, and Jen Statsky have confirmed the finale was a narrative decision. This story ends here because it has a real ending, not because anyone canceled it. For those who have been following it from the start, the last season of Hacks is one of the most important television events of the year. For those who haven't discovered it yet, 4 perfect seasons are waiting on HBO Max before the farewell arrives. Number 2. Euphoria Season 3. Rue Bennett survived high school. What comes after is more complicated. Season 3 of Euphoria jumps 5 years forward and finds its characters navigating adult life with all the baggage they accumulated in East Highland Rue in Mexico, in debt to Lori, and looking for creative ways to pay it off. Cassie and Nate engaged and living in the suburbs in an image of normalcy that fools nobody. Jules in art school doing everything possible to avoid responsibility. Maddie building a career as a content creator. Zendaya leads a cast that includes the returns of Hunter Schafer, Jacob Elordi, Sydney Sweeney, Alexa Demi, and Maud Apatow, with Adewale Akinwuye Agbaje as a new villain who turns the season into a darker and more cinematic thriller than anything that came before. 4 years of waiting, 8 episodes shot on 35mm and 65mm film, the first narrative television series to use that format in a significant way. Sam Levinson bet on a radical change of tone that in the first episodes alone is already generating conversations around this series not seen since Season 2. Euphoria launched the film careers of Zendaya, Sydney Sweeney, and Jacob Elordi, and Season 3 arrives with all 3 of them at the highest point of their careers. The most anticipated television comeback of the year on HBO Max. Number 1. House of the Dragon Season 3. The Targaryen Civil War did not end with negotiations. It ended with blood, fire, and dragons over the sea. Season 3 of House of the Dragon opens exactly where it had to with the Battle of the Gullet, the most ambitious action sequence the Game of Thrones franchise has attempted since the days of Hardhome and Beyond the Wall. A naval battle with multiple dragons that showrunner Ryan Condal has been planning for 3 years, and that director Loni Perister says is something nobody has ever seen before on television. Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra Targaryen and Olivia Cooke as Alicent Hightower return for the penultimate season of a story that already has an end date confirmed. The 4th and final season is locked in for 2028. Matt Smith, Ewan Mitchell, Tom Glencarney, and Fabian Frankel complete a cast that across 2 seasons built one of the densest and most emotionally demanding political dramas in fantasy television. Season 2 was criticized for its slow pace. Season 3 arrives with the explicit promise of correcting that from the very first frame. House of the Dragon is the biggest franchise on HBO Max, the one that generates more global conversation every time it premieres, and Season 3 arrives in June of 2026 as the television event of the summer. For Game of Thrones fans who still haven't entered this universe, 2 complete seasons are waiting before the real war begins. That was the countdown of the 10 most important HBO Max series of 2026, from comedies saying goodbye with everything they have to the biggest Dragon War television has ever seen. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next video.